That's right. How's it going, folks? Thanks for coming out. And today, I know inside of the invitation, we were going to talk about BigQuery and the Cloud Vision API, and we're going to get to all of that stuff. But more generically, I thought it might be nice to actually just talk a little bit about randomly some of the things we're doing with Node.js at Google. I know in the past we haven't gotten to a lot of these events. That's something we're trying to start to change. And so if you have any questions after the talk, come talk to myself, or my colleague Sandeep is also up here with me, and we both just strolled over from the San Francisco office right down the street. And so today we're going to be talking, we're doing a whirlwind tour of all the stuff we're doing with V8, Chrome, and Cloud for Node.js. So before we get too much in, a little bit more about me, because I don't think there's been enough about me yet. I'm a web and cloud guy over at Google. I've been there for about a year now. And if you want to get in touch with me, Twitter, website, GitHub, all those great things. And this is me wearing my, this is my Node.js powered hat. Very googly. So kind of the point of this, and one of the things I wanted to talk about is what's Google doing for Node.js right now? We've been involved in the community, a little bit, and we've definitely built some tools that you're based off of, but it's one of the things we're trying to really kind of step up how much we're providing for devs. So the first thing is obviously Chrome V8. So Node.js up to this point has been mostly built on top of V8 for the JavaScript execution engine. And one of the cool things that's actually happening right now is we're starting to see Microsoft get involved, and we're starting to see Chakra, where we have alternatives for the JavaScript execution engine that we can use with Node.js. But up until that started happening, largely built on top of V8, and we're starting to make some improvements specifically for Node.js. I'm going to talk a little bit about those things today. One of the announcements we made a couple of months ago at our developer conference was that we just released support for Node.js on App Engine. Now, App Engine is our platform as a service. If you've used anything like, I think earlier someone mentioned Elastic Beanstalk, Heroku, these kind of platform as a service systems, we were one of the first. We've been around since 2007. And the idea is that you just deploy the code, we automatically scale it, we do all the ops, we do all that sort of stuff for you. And we're going to do a little demo of that if we have time. And one that I'm kind of proud of, because it was actually a lot of work to get us there, is that we recently just joined the Node.js Foundation. So we're trying to start to get more involved, both from the core technical committee side, where we're trying to make more contributions, do a better job of helping keep V8 upgraded inside of Node.js. And at the same time, we want to be able to help invest in the broader organization. So we want to be able to go to events, we want to be able to help with marketing, help with broad decision. So enough of all of this markety type babble. I'm not much of a slide guy, so I apologize I don't have that many of them. Mostly I was just going to walk through some demos, talk about some of the cool stuff we're building, and hopefully we can have some discussions and answer some questions if they come up. So a few of the things we're going to look at, I'm going to try to pick a little bit from Chrome and a little bit from Cloud when I walk through these. On the Chrome side, one of the things I already mentioned is the V8 integration. So recently we started adding tests for Node.js core inside of the V8 waterfall. So now as we test V8, every time we check in when there's a change, we're now making sure that we're not breaking Node.js at every turn, sort of like we were a little bit at the beginning. And so just a little bit, but we're not. Now we know when we're doing it, and we're trying to help fix it. And one of the big advantages to helping kind of increase that integration cycle and get what you get out of more frequent V8 builds is you get better JavaScript support, especially for things like ES6. So now, as new ES6 features are landing inside of V8 and coming to Google Chrome on the quick release cycle, we can more quickly get those integrated into Node so that there's not a big waiting period. So that's one of the things we've been really, really focused on making better. One of the things I'm going to show here in a bit, and I'm actually probably the most excited about, is the developer tools preview. So we're actually working on directly integrating the Chrome developer tooling and the JavaScript debugger with Node.js natively. And then lastly, we're doing some experimental support for FFI and making it just easier to build native modules where you're not going to have to be as concerned with breaking changes in V8 if you're a native module owner. And then on the cloud side, lots more cool stuff. I mentioned App Engine, where we've been starting to work a lot with Node.js and Kubernetes. And actually, if one of the talks that Sandeep has, you guys should go find. If you go search for Node.js and Kubernetes, you're going to find a couple of his talks on running Node inside of containers and using our orchestration tools, the same stuff we're using at Google to run most of our applications. We're going to take a look at gRPC. Someone mentioned microservices earlier and how HTTP is not necessarily the best way to do that. This is one of the places where gRPC shines. So it's great for bidirectional communication, all open source, Node.js clients, can be baked, works over HTTP 2. So it's nice and snappy. And then we're going to talk about these other fun things. So I'm going to stop talking about that. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to show off is a couple of apps running on App Engine. Kind of the ways you can run code, Node.js on Google Cloud if you're interested. One is App Engine, and the idea here is just bring your code and we'll run it. We automatically scale it. We run it inside of Docker containers, though you don't really have to know about that. We do all the automatic logging integration, all this kind of good stuff. If you're already doing Kubernetes or you're already using Docker, we have a hosted version of Kubernetes, so kind of our Google Cloud version of Kubernetes. And then finally, we have Compute Engine. So if you're used to just using virtual machines, you can do that as well. So let's walk over and actually just do that. Let's build something real quick. And I don't know what to do with the microphone while I'm doing this, so apologies. All right. So over here, can you all see this okay? Oh, let's get a little bit bigger. All right, there we go. Okay, so I have Node.js next over here. This is just a simple Express application, pretty much run-of-the-mill Express. And just to show I have no tricks up my sleeves, we're going to go to localhost, and we have Express, but it's going to be running on Google App Engine. So pretty much the only thing you need to do to modify most of your apps to run on App Engine is generate one of these app.yaml files, which pretty much just tells us this is a Node.js application, and please run it on top of VMs. So one of the cool things about App Engine Flex, the new thing we came out with, is instead of running kind of in an opaque sort of container, we actually are running your app inside of a Docker container on the virtual machine. And we'll see why that's cool in just a minute. And when you're ready to deploy, just say gcloud preview app, deploy. It's going to kick off. It's going to ask us, are we sure? Yes, I want to deploy to Node.js, SFNode. And, well, if it were working, if I had set this up properly before, it would be kicking it off. That's how the demo goblins work. So let's look at a version that I already deployed that I have running here. I put one in the oven this morning. So this is the Google Cloud Developer Console, and we're sitting and looking at the overview of an App Engine app that I deployed earlier. It's essentially the same app. And we have a breakdown of the dashboard. We have services. So if you have microservice architecture, there's some advantages to kind of lumping each of your services together. You can deploy many of those, and then communication and registry and such between them is a lot easier. And then we have versions. So one of the cool things about App Engine that's a little bit unique is that every time you deploy, we're going to create a new one of these versions. And what we do is we have a no downtime deploy. So we take your existing version, it's getting 100% of the traffic. And you can see here I have one version here that's got 100%. When you deploy, we create a new version, and only after it's completely deployed and you're getting traffic and it's marked, hit a bunch of the steps so that we know it's healthy, then we're going to finally cut everything over. But if you want to, you can switch back and forth. You can also pass flags so that we won't automatically upgrade to the next version unless, so that you can go in, check it, make sure it works, and then do the traffic switch over to the new version. So no downtime upgrades. But the other thing that's kind of cool about this is that you can deploy multiple versions, and then you can split traffic between them. So here I have, so this is the simple app. This is Express on App Engine, the working version. And then I've also got yellow. You can imagine green. I'm not gonna click on all of these. So each of these has its own URL. So if you want to deploy many of these versions, you can directly address them, and you can directly get at them that way. Or what we can do is we can select the 4 of them, and we can say, let's split the traffic. And I want to go 25, 25. Yeah, you kind of get the idea, right? 25, and save. Now, of course, I forgot to click on the cookie button, and what that means is since I'm always going to be requesting it from the same IP address, when this is done, it's always going to be going to the same, unfortunately, to the same version because it's going to have IP affinity. But had I clicked on cookie and then gone back and done this, what this is, and let's actually try that just so that I'm not entirely lying. I have to have at least one of my demos work today. So let's click this and save again. So if you're going to do A/B testing, this is actually pretty sweet. All right, so let's check it out. So Node.js next. And we got the red version. All right, let's do it again. Node.js next. And yellow version. So it's going to cycle through those, and you can get a nice, easy way to do some A/B testing. So one of the other things I mentioned was that under the hood, we're running this all on top of GCE VMs. You can actually dig down and kind of look directly at the virtual machines where we're running the application. And where this is really, really useful, and you can see here we have 2 instances. This is set up on an autoscaler. It's actually using the same autoscaler we use for VMs. And you can tweak that and configure it however you need it. But the place where this is really useful is if something goes wrong and you need to SSH directly into the machine and you want to grab logs, it is completely, oh, thanks. There we go. It is completely transparent. So you can just SSH in, take a look at all the Docker containers we're running. We have multiple containers that are providing kind of a few satellite services around your application. And then you can tail logs, you can take a look at request traffic coming in, you can debug the thing just like if it were on a normal VM, but in this case it's in one that's managed by us inside of the PaaS. And there we go. So yay. And then in this case I'm going to do a Docker PS. Sudo Docker PS. So you can see these are all of the containers that we're running. And then Docker exec, IT, thank you. All right, let's try that again. Sudo Docker exec -IT, GAE app, and then and now you can see the Node application that we just deployed, and you're connected to the actual host that's serving your application. So this is a whirlwind tour of what we have with App Engine. All right. So back to the presentation. All right, so all the stuff we talked about, bring the code, run it on your own. We can scale to millions of requests per second. Under the hood, it's using a lot of the same container orchestration technology we're using at Google, so it has to scale pretty well. With all the custom domains, SSL certificates, developer console is nice. Oh, and the other thing I didn't mention, this is super cool, so I wanted to make sure that I show it. So with this app that we have here, if I wanted to run this thing on Kubernetes, then I could do that. Because at the end of the day, you didn't do anything for Docker, but ultimately we're running it in a Docker container. So what we let you do is run this gen config command. And we're going to create a Docker file for you. And this is the exact Docker file that we're going to run for you in production. So you can now take this directory. If you're already using Docker, you can Docker build, deploy it to Kubernetes, or just do a Docker run, and it's going to be the exact application that we're running inside of production. All right. So just running stuff on cloud is not actually all that much fun. I think the funner stuff to kind of talk about is some of the APIs that we're working on right now. So we obviously have a bunch of storage stuff. So we have cloud data stores, our document-based database. We have cloud storage for large files. We have a lot of great stuff for doing big data, and we're going to take a look at BigQuery here in a second. But the really fun stuff, the stuff I want to show you next, is the machine learning APIs. So this includes the Cloud Vision API. This is actually the same technology we use under the hood for Google Photos. We've wrapped up in a service, and we have an NPM module that lets you easily access that. So you can upload a picture, and we'll tell you what's in it, essentially. We have the Translate API for doing speech translation, prediction, speech recognition, cloud machine learning, all this kind of stuff that we've been building at Google for the last 15, 20 years for our own services. We're starting to roll out, make them into APIs, and then provide access through our NPM module that we have. And this stuff works on Google Cloud. It'll work locally on your machine. It'll work wherever you deploy it. It doesn't have to be on Google Cloud. So when I needed to find a way to kind of piece a few of these together just to play around and get to know them myself, and I wanted to be able to come talk about it. And so I decided to build an app. I could have done anything, lots of cool APIs. I decided to build an app about my cat. This is Kitty Boo. She's getting internationally famous these days. And this really where this started in an office conversation where a few of us were having a conversation about Reddit. I don't know if many of you have seen r/aw. Cute pictures of dogs and cats. And we're on the topic of whether developers like dogs or cats more. And so we're having kind of an argument because a bunch of us have dogs and we're dog people, a bunch of us have cats, some both. And we decided, in typical Google fashion, we wanted to be data-driven about this. We didn't want to leave it to just arguing. So we built an app that actually it goes out and it talks to the Reddit API, it grabs the images, stuffs them in cloud storage, analyzes them with the Cloud Vision API, and the piece I'm missing here is, we publish results to a front end. So we have a front end module, a back end module, an app engine. Those are each our 2 microservices. And then the part that's actually missing from this is now, and just as of last night, I'm streaming this data into BigQuery so that we can do real-time data analysis on it. So,
Glad you're busy.
Well, Google's mission statement, we're organizing the world's information, right? That's all I'm trying to do. So let's take a look at this. So this is, as promised, this is Cloud Cats. And if you want to go check Reddit, you can actually look on r/aw, and assuming that the internet connection, works, you're going to find the same images there. And what we're doing is we're taking everything we think is a dog, we're trying to put on the right, and everything that we think is a cat, we're sticking on the left. And this is all being done in real time, by the way. So about maybe a little bit less than a second for each image that comes up. And then when we get down towards the end, we're going to find out which one there are more of. We're running a little short on time. This is going to analyze a lot of images. But interestingly, what's proved out so far is almost universally, there are more pictures of dogs than cats. So this is going to go on and run for a while. But as we're doing this, one of the cool things is now, if we want to know how it operates over time, I'm actually running this nightly now. So this is kind of an ad hoc job. Did a cat sneak in?
Yeah.
Well,
also a rabbit in the cats.
Well, nothing is absolutely perfect. On the bright side, most of the cats are cats. I wonder if this one counted as 2. I'm not sure. So what we're going to do now is let's actually go look at some of the data that we just dumped into BigQuery when we ran this. So BigQuery is our large-scale data analysis tool. You can store data in it either from GCS, so you can store it by saving JSON files and putting it into our large file server. You can store CSV files, or you can stream them directly. I'll show you the code in a second. What I'm doing is I'm actually streaming all this stuff directly. So what we can do is we can come in here, take a look. This is the BigQuery UI, and you can see Cloud Cats. And here is my, here is my the images table. So all we have for each one of these images is the URL, a type, and this total number is just kind of tracking how many of these are coming along. So let's query it. So first let's figure out how many records I've stored since I've been running the job, because I've been just kind of churning Reddit for a while. And we're going to run the query. First thing you'll notice is that this is very, very simple SQL. So it's the same sort of SQL that you would run on your own if you were using something like Postgres, or if you're using SQL Server or MySQL, that kind of deal. But in this case, it's like 439. And let's do the count from the images, but let's group by the what's it called, the type. And then let's get the type here. So we can find the breakdown of, so there we go. 171 dogs. Since I started running this job, it's processed 171 dogs, 129 cats, and 139 that didn't have either. And so I'm going to keep running for this for a while, and I want to see it get up to a couple million records before I make any large judgments. But so far, given a few hundred records, dog is so far playing out. But let's say we want to do something a little bit more than a few hundred records. What if you want to start getting into the millions? One of the cool things that we released recently in BigQuery are some public data sets. So if you want to do analysis over things like weather data, names data, disease surveillance data, I'm not going to use that one. That's a little scary. We're going to do Hacker News, because I think this is more of a Hacker News crowd. You can actually search over all of the comments, all of the submissions, all the stuff that's available in Hacker News. So let's check it out. You can click on the table, and all these will just kind of show up. These are all available to anyone, pretty much at no cost to query them. So let's take a look at what is inside of here. And let's get the count. And I'm going to guess that we're dealing with just a few more records this time. There we go. OK, so close to 2 million. So what do we want to look for? What should we look for?
Node.
Node. Oh my God, I didn't expect that. All right. So let's search from there where the title contains Node and see what we get. So we're going to search over about 2 million records doing a text search. And there we go. And it's done. And the first one is Linode is down. OK, so the search wasn't airtight. We can only figure out based on what you give us. But the idea here, the thing that I kind of want to get across is that we're doing this with 2 million records, and it was instantaneous. Streaming into it is really easy. This is great if you have, this isn't so much of a.
Cached.
It's cached.
It's got options and uncached.
Options and uncache.
Remove use cache. You don't want to do this really, because cache saves money. But if you run it again,
OK.
it's on his account, so whatever.
Yeah. OK. So that time it took 2.4 seconds instead of 1 second. If you have terabytes and terabytes of data that you need to process over, this is a great option because you don't have to define an index. There are no indices. You pay per query, right? Yeah, you pay on a per query basis. If you need to process like really, really large amounts of data and you don't want to run your own clusters to process it, this is a pretty nice way to do it, and it's easy to get data in from Node. So let's take a look at how you actually do that. So here I've got the Cloud Cats project that we were just looking at. As I mentioned, I have a front end and a back end, so two microservices that communicate. I used an HTTP API, I'm sorry. They communicate with a simple API, and each of them are deployed as their own app. And I also happen to be using Happy, so highly recommend that you go do that. And the thing that I really want to show off, what's really interesting is what's happening inside of our worker. So let's take a look at vision.js. So this is the code that's doing the vision analysis. And if you look at this, you import our module. We have a key file, which is just like how you authenticate to the service. Grab a reference to the vision API. As I mentioned, I'm also using storage here. And then when you want to do the vision detection piece, I think this is the funnest thing to show because you look at it, it's just vision.detect labels, pointed at a file. So we piped a file directly into cloud storage, detect labels on it, and then it gives us an array back of what it found. So in our case, dog, cat, turtle, whatever it happened to find. So like 3-4 lines of code, you just did image analysis on an image and figured out if it had a dog or a cat in it. If we had to go build this, I know if I had to go build this myself, I would never be able to actually build it. But you can just pick it up, use it. Again, it's fairly inexpensive, and you can use it either on Google Cloud or you can consume it from somewhere else. So BigQuery, kind of the same thing in terms of simplicity. I have to remember where I put that code. I'm pretty sure I put it here. Yeah, same idea. So here, this is just, all this is a simple flat object that has the same shape as the table we were looking at. So the URL, the type, and the total. And it's the same deal. Just get a reference to the table. So I'd created a data set already. I'd got a reference to my table, and then just insert the data. And you're pretty much done. So all these APIs doing things like machine learning, vision, BigQuery, they're kind of exposing this very, very technically complex stuff. But I'm able to use it, and it's pretty simple to piece together and build stuff like Cloud Cats. So going back, as I was building this, as I'm sure all of you go through when you're building your apps, a lot of times stuff does not work. Traditionally, especially early on, debugging, I come from a Visual Studio and .NET background. That's just kind of where I started. And now I'm at Node. But I got very, very used to and comforted by having simple debugging tools. Being able to kind of, in the case of Visual Studio, hit F5 in the IDE, breakpoints, be able to step through. And not having that out of the box with Node was kind of challenging. Node Inspector helped with some of that early on, but going to the command line just kind of wasn't for me. And Node Inspector, sometimes it works, sometimes not so much. And so one of the cool things that we're working on is trying to add native support for debugging. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit next. So right now, and forgive me, I have to change versions. I was running Node 4.4, and I have to switch over to Node V7 Nightly 2016 0602. So there's, we'll see how this goes. It's probably going to be fine. So this is our simple Express application. What I'm going to do, instead of using npm start, I'm just going to run node. Now with a new flag in that build, -- inspect. And this literally just got in like 2 or 3 days ago. I think it hit master. Inspect and bin/www. And what we're going to get now when we run is it's going to open up a debugger port, and it's just going to give us this URL that we need to go paste into Chrome. And here we are. So we're taking a look at our sources. I may have been doing this just before the talk to make sure it was still working. And so here's my app on localhost. Refresh. It's kind of taking a while to load because we just hit our breakpoint inside of the handler of our Node.js application in Express. So now all of the tools we have available to us inside of the Chrome developer tools, inside the JS debugger, you have available to you here. So let's take a look at what's in the response, or let's take a look at the request.path. And it's all right there. We can do watch, we can walk through, we can hover, all the same stuff that you're using for the front end. Now, eventually, is it where it lands exactly? I think we're still kind of figuring that out. But the intent is to make that available pretty soon. And we're working on a couple of other things to make it easier to use so you don't have to do the copy paste bit. But this is one that I was pretty excited about. Another one that I'm pretty excited about is the cloud debugger. So in this case, we have the luxury running locally. So we have the luxury of having an interactive debugger. But if you're in production, you don't always have that luxury. You don't want to stop execution of your thread while users are using it. So if you have an issue in production, sometimes it's kind of hard to get that state. So one of the cool things that we have that I think is actually kind of unique, let's take a look at our Cloud Cats project over here in the developer console. We have this neat thing called Cloud Debugger. And what Cloud Debugger does is when you publish your code to App Engine, or if you're doing it from Kubernetes or wherever, you can actually come in and set a breakpoint for your live running app. So let's do cat relay. The first time I ever created a file called catrelay.js, but all right. And so I'm going to set a breakpoint right here. I'm using pubnub to push some of my messages is how I'm getting some of my real-time stuff to work. Now, this isn't a normal breakpoint. This isn't going to stop execution. What's going to happen is when someone visits the app and the first time it hits this point in my code, we're going to just take a snapshot of what's currently happening. And we're going to be able to take a look at the current state of the local objects. So let's go ahead and let's go back to Cloud Cats and run it one more time. And we're going to wait for the first image to come through. And there we go. It hit our breakpoint. Now, our app is still over here executing like nothing happened at all. But over here, we can come in and see exactly what the state of all of these objects are inside of our application at the time it was running. And sorry, I don't have a lot of resolution here to show off. But you can see the URL for the image, the type, the same exact object we were pushing to BigQuery, we can now see. So if we're getting some kind of data we didn't expect in production, we can set breakpoints and actually analyze what's happening with that over time. We also have some cool tools for doing tracing. So if you want to go in and see how long your requests are taking, what's happening inside of there, let's take a look at, yeah, there we go. So this is the request that we did took kind of a long time because it was exercising a lot of data. And we can see here's a two-second request. And we can actually dig down and take a look at everything that's happening during the HTTP request while we were running our analysis. So the whole request took 2 seconds before we canceled it. We went to Reddit. And we grabbed some JSON to tell us the list of images, and then we started downloading individual images. And then this will run down through, we started doing some authentication to use the APIs. I think this is actually uploading to storage, and then using the Cloud Vision API. So for a single request, we can get a full breakdown, a stack of every single RPC that we're making outgoing from our application while that request is happening. If you're trying to find a problem, and again, this is passive, doesn't affect performance, doesn't stop execution. While if you're trying to debug something and figure out why you're having performance issues, it's pretty sweet to have at your disposal. All right. So we talked about all this stuff, the Chrome dev tools, debugging live code, RPC. We're actually doing a lot in this space right now, both in cloud and in Chrome. And so afterwards, if anybody has anything, I want to hear stories. What's been challenging? What are you doing today? What can we do at Google to make it better? I think that's the most important thing. All the stuff that we looked at today is on GitHub. So our Docker images that we're using for the runtimes and App Engine is all built on GitHub and published. The Google API client, the Node.js API client we didn't talk about, we have a single NPM module that gives you access to every single Google API. So maps, cloud, there's a ton of the docs, sheets, all that stuff. We have the cloud-specific NPM module that's out there, which is all the stuff we looked at today. Trace, debug, all of our cloud samples. All of it is over there on the Google Cloud Platform GitHub. And thanks. Do I have time to take questions? Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Does the Chrome Debugger stuff for Node support tracing through async call stacks the way this is running?
Yep, that was actually demoed. I'm pretty sure that was demoed at I/O. Yeah, so there's a good talk. If you want to see, so I just did the quick flyby on doing the debugging. If you want to see an in-depth talk on what's coming up, and again, this stuff is super early, Seth Thompson and I can't remember the engineer's name, but two guys gave a talk at I/O on debugging tools for Node.js, and it's up on YouTube if you want to take a look.
On the cloud debugging tool, do you accept, or do you have a conditional breakpoint?
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually the more, so what I did was I just like grabbed a breakpoint, we saw it stop. Usually that's not what you're actually going to do. You're typically going to want to have a conditional when there's an exception that happens and you want to analyze the state of the objects that are further up in the stack. So yeah, there's a, and I can show you this after, but if you go in, there's a conditional section.
Can you also use profiling of other tools on the cloud?
Profiling of other tools on cloud.
Profiling and like the other tools which are Chrome Debugger?
Oh, not yet. Not yet. So the stuff that we have right now in cloud is very, very early, but we don't have a profiler yet.
Another question. So you mentioned Vision API. So what exactly is the Vision API? Like how do you consume it? And
Yeah.
can you elaborate?
Sure, absolutely. Let's take a look at that. So essentially the way it works is you take an image, you upload it, you tell us what do you want to detect. Now what we can detect is we can look for labels, which is what we did there. And I actually have a very silly demo that shows how this. I can't help myself, Sandeep. I'm sorry. I have to show this stupid demo. Oh no, it's not working.
It is.
Oh, it's oh no, it's just not showing the webcam's not turning on. Oh well. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's see. I mean, of course, it never works. It never works when you do it live. Come on. Okay, I think so. It got in the neighborhood. It can get. Yeah, this. I don't know why I'm playing this game. This is always an embarrassing game, actually.
2 syllables.
All right, come on. I got it. It's a drink. It thinks that we're drinking. Okay, well, close enough. Not quite yet. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say it's all. This is actually the prediction engine now. So you can tell us what to look for, and we'll look for common labels like this app is doing. We'll do facial detection. We can actually do facial sentiment analysis as well and figure out, is the person happy? Are they sad? No, thank you. Or you can look for things like logos. It can do OCR. So it'll pull text off of it. You essentially just tell the API what you want it to do, point it at an image, and then it returns a bunch of an array of labels for you.
So App Engine lets me write my code in Node. Is there anything you can tell us about Google's use of Node for their own
purposes?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now it's definitely very early for that. The way Google works is we have a small subset of languages. Actually, I'd say like a lot of companies work. We have a small subset of languages that we focus on, and those are the ones that folks use for production services. Most of the Node.js stuff we're doing internally is actually for testing frameworks right now for front-end web applications. So a lot of Mocha, a lot of Jasmine tests, a lot of the Angular test framework, like Protractor, all that kind of stuff. Most of the usage today is in that area. We're not building backend services right now with Node.
How good is the OCR?
I-
Does the image have to be like perfect?
I myself have not tried it out yet.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Local recognition is pretty good. We use it for a hackathon project.
Yeah?
Yeah, like it will recognize that something is a Hershey's or Kit Kat or something. It just doesn't recognize like unfamous brands or something.
Oh, that's the logo detection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the logo detection is different from the OCR, but the logo detection, you're exactly right. We were actually just talking about the same exact thing, where it's for high-level brands, it's pretty good. For more anything below high-level brand, it's new. It's getting there, but apparently.
Like someone was doing on pills, like they had like serial numbers on the medicine, they could OCR that.
Wow.
If the picture is good, it can do it. Like surface bending, it's the same thing we use for Street View and stuff, right? So for the
Does this mean we can use it to get around reCAPTCHAs?
That's why we have
We broke our own reCAPTCHA. That's fantastic. I have an idea for Phantom.js and the Cloud Vision API. If anyone, why am I suggesting this? This is an awful idea. I'm sorry. Anybody else? All right. Well, I'll be around for a while if anyone wants to come up. Thanks a lot.